So I ran 4 molds. This is the one that's the witch. And this is probably the one that came out the best. But it did take me a while to get the mold off. This is the Frankenstein. Now this one, the mold broke, and that's why you see a little scar, but that's okay, it's Frankenstein, right? Hello, welcome to Random Things. This is Ty, and for this video, I want to share with you my shaped pumpkins that I grew this year for this year's pumpkin season. As you saw in the intro video, the witch, which is this pumpkin, right? This one came out really well. And then my Frankenstein, I did have some issues with the mold, which I'll explain in a video. And then here's my Donald Trump pumpkin. As you can see, it didn't grow out of the way. And let me show you what happened with this one. And then here's my gorilla pumpkin. Again, it didn't grow out all the way. And one of the reasons is it has to do with the variety of the pumpkin. So, with that, let's go into how I grew these pumpkins. Okay, so the way you grow these pumpkins is you actually get molds like this, right? And it's 2 halves. And so you clamp it onto a pumpkin while it's still a small fruit, about the size of a softball. And then it will kind of grow in this mold. In about 15 days, it'll get mostly full. But if you leave it a little longer, depending on the species, it may grow further and more full, I guess, and kind of fill in all the crevices. Okay, here's the skull pumpkin. We're gonna cut her off today. And then here is the witch. I'm gonna cut it right there. So these pumpkins are regular jack-o'-lantern type pumpkins. They look like that. So I'll show you the Donald Trump pumpkin. Here's my Donald Trump pumpkin. I'll harvest that, show you what that looks like. But it did not fill out all the way, and it's already turned all the way orange, so it's not gonna grow anymore. But unfortunately, on this side of the patch, I have a different variety of pumpkin. And let me show you what that is. So on this side of the patch, it's that type of pumpkin where it's kind of a squattier pumpkin. It's a big pumpkin, but it's not going to fill out correctly. I am trying it on the monkey mold, so we'll see how that goes. So this is the Donald Trump mold. As you can see, it didn't actually fill out all the way. And it might be because the variety of pumpkin, as I alluded to earlier. And so I got the eyes, so you can tell that it's filled in because there's no moisture. And you're seeing moisture there, that means that the pumpkin hasn't pushed up against it. So I'm not going to get the texture of the nose or the mouth, unfortunately. So only thing I got is, I think, the hair. So we'll pull it out and take a look at it. Here is a skull pumpkin. So this one hasn't turned orange yet, but as you can also see, this one also didn't fill in all the way, right? And this one is actually really, if you look at the design of the mold, it's very narrow. It had to do possibly, it was the right species of pumpkin, but it had possibly to do with the way when I put the mold on. I think I may have put the mold on a little too late, so it didn't wiggle its way. By the time I put the mold on, it already pinched it, and so then it didn't really let it wiggle down. And then here's the witch. All right, so again, most of the moistures are gone. I pulled it because I didn't want to break the mold, right? And so you can see the chin is not fully filled in. There's a gap there, you can kind of see that. But on the back side, it looks pretty decent. So it's got the hair in the base. So we'll open these up, and they're kind of a pain to open up. So I'll kind of show you that. And so back to the Frankenstein pumpkin, as you can see, the mold broke, right? And it broke while the mold was still on the pumpkin on the vine. And it had to do with, I think the pumpkin just burst through it. So here's a cut-in video to show you what that looked like. I'm so bummed. This was filling out so well, but as you can see, I didn't realize that it actually has snapped. before it finished filling in all the grooves. Okay, so let me take these apart and let's take a look what the pumpkins look like without the mold. So there are lots of nuts and bolts that you have to remove. It took me a while to remove it. And then after I removed the nuts and bolts, it actually was a bit of a chore to actually pry the two halves apart. And then once I pried the two halves apart, I still had a challenging time removing the skull pumpkin. So I decided to try the Donald Trump pumpkin, and I had better luck with that one. So I want to talk real quick. The molds come with these type of nuts and screws, nuts and bolts. Right, this is a standard one. So unfortunately for me, when I was putting this mold on and learning how to use this mold, I didn't put it on this hole. Thinking no big deal, I had it on these. Well, it turns out it was a big deal. It started to pry it open. And so I had to go out and hurry up and put a bolt and nut on it. The problem was those were too short. So I had to go to Home Depot and get myself a just a standard nut and bolt, and I put a washer on it to kind of help, and it allowed me to kind of slowly press it back together. So that was a learning lesson. So you may think it's a lot of bolts. Well, it isn't. You actually need them all. So make sure you put them all on. So we talked a little bit about the Donald Trump pumpkin. So on this skull pumpkin, generally it has pretty tight and used the standard nut and bolt. Unfortunately, there's a long one right here, and it did not come with this nut and bolt. And so maybe it was an oversight. You could talk to the seller, but I just went ahead and went to Home Depot and just bought a 3-inch nut and bolt. That way I can fit one in here as well so that I don't get it to bow in the grow process. Now you buy these molds, you can buy them directly from the company. It's Sling Fisher. You go to slingfisher.com, and I'll put a link in my description box as well as in the comments so that you can go ahead and click on that. And if you're interested in buying these molds, I actually bought them from Amazon, and I will also put a link on my description box for the Amazon so you can click on that. When I bought it on Amazon, it came with a 5-pack. So there was a witch, a Frankenstein, a Donald Trump, a skull, which I'll show you a video of me trying to grow the skull pumpkin. I wasn't successful, but I'm growing some more, so hopefully those will be successful. Not sure what happened to the voice recording, but what I was trying to say is the 5th mold is a baby Frankenstein. It's about this size. And then separately, I bought a gorilla mold on the side to try to grow and see what that looks like. So when you buy the mold, it will come in a box of 5 molds, and then you also get a bag of nuts and bolts. Right, so this is the bolt and the nut. Right, so it gives you enough nuts and bolts, and then in addition, it comes with an instruction sheet to kind of explain to you that how to do it. It's very basic instruction sheet, but what it does emphasize is the type of pumpkin that you use is important. So again, this is the jack-o'-lantern style, and then this is a more of a squatty style. Next year, I will probably try to use some heirloom, warty type of pumpkins. And one of the reasons I want to try that one for the witch, I thought it would be kind of cool to have a bunch of warts, right? The little bumps. Second, I will share this. One of the problems with growing shade pumpkin, not a problem, but one of the challenges you will find if you decide to grow your own is that they are really hard to remove if you grow them fully and filled into the mold. It's like it creates a suction or something to the mold surface, and there's really nothing that you can grab onto to pull them out. You don't really want to grab onto the stem and pull it, right? And so you're just trying to, use pressure and pulling it out without damaging the pumpkin. So it took me like 3 days to take the witch out of the shell. Maybe I'll get better at it. That was my first
perfect full pumpkin. This one looks full, but what happened was for this one, the mold actually broke. And so because the mold broke, it cracked a portion of it off. And I'll show you it in this video.
I'm so bummed. This was filling out so well, but as you can see, I didn't realize that it actually has snapped.
Now, because it broke this portion of it off, actually right here, it was easier actually to take it out of the mold. So it took me 3 days to take the witch out. Some videos suggest freezing it. I didn't really find that to be very practical. I tried heating the mold with a blow dryer, a hair dryer, so hoping that the mold itself will expand and loosen up and let this slide out. That didn't quite work. I did notice that the pumpkins does shrink a little because it's going to lose moisture. And so about 2-3 days later, it did shrink a little bit, and I can see little gaps between the pumpkin face and the mold surface. So then what I got was a little syringe, and I filled it with soapy water. And then I injected it through the holes because the mold has, it's hard to see, but there's a bunch of holes in here. And the reason why there's a bunch of holes is because as the pumpkin grows, it's going to actually create a lot of moisture, and you want it to breathe, right? So you want the moisture to get out. So there's a bunch of holes. So then I kind of used the syringe and I injected soapy water into the mold to try to use water as a lubricant, then to be able to separate it from the face. And that worked. However, it was still really, really hard to remove. Okay, so you've been warned. It's not as easy as just opening up the mold and it falls out. It doesn't work that way. It is a pain to pull it out of the mold. And I think you can find other videos that talk about that. But I just want to make sure, full disclosure, I don't want you to get all happy and say, I'm going to go, this is no problem. There are some challenges that you should be aware of before you attempt this. The other thing you should do is, as you try to remove the pumpkin from the mold, it does get scratched and nicked. Sometimes you can have certain bacteria on the surface of the mold of the pumpkin, and with these scratches and nicks, it can cause the fruit to rot. And so you do want to wash the pumpkin after you pull it out the mold. Use soap water, wash it real well, and then you can spray it with a little bit of olive oil and wipe it all down. And that oil will kind of seal the pumpkin, and then it will cure. And if you can seal the pumpkin correctly, the pumpkin will still turn orange, and it will last like 6 to 8 months, I'm told. I've never really kept the pumpkin that long because I didn't really need to keep a regular pumpkin. What's the point of that? But with these shaped pumpkins, I may try to keep them for a long time and see what happens. Okay, now that I've shared with you how I grow my shaped pumpkins, I hope you found this video extremely entertaining or helpful. And if you did, please hit the like and share button. That will really help me out. If you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button. Again, that will really help me out. Anyway, I really appreciate you watching this video. And as always, thank you, and I will see you on the next random video.